Hey folks, Editor Exodark1 here. Just a quick reminder that the special Raid Halloween event is still going on for the remainder of the month, and if you want to see us grow and succeed, well, now is the best time. Stuart's computer just bricked, and we need your help to get it fixed. This is not a joke, but it is really funny. His computer is literally in the shop right now and could use your support by clicking the link in the description. For real, this is literally not a joke. Raid money keeps us supported and can help us fix our computers. Stuart's computer, not my computer. Not that I need a new computer, but what do I do? I'm just the guy that presses buttons and does funny voices. So what? Click the link in the description and pin comment to help us reach 30 downloads, and we'll reward you with some awesome prizes and a special marathon stream as soon as the computer is fixed. Which, once again, to remind you guys, is broken. It's not a joke, and it's definitely not funny. It's not funny. It's a little funny. Just click the link below to fix it.
Howdy friendos, my name is Stuart and welcome to the part of the channel where we take a look at pop culture characters and determine what alignment they are in Dungeons & Dragons. Today we are going to take a look at all of the Ghostbusters from the two canon movie series, which means we are looking at Ghostbusters 2016 and of course the original series. Ghostbusters is a sci-fi comedy film created by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. The original movie is set in 1948 and features three misfit professors who investigate the paranormal. Their field gets no respect and they are fired shortly after the movie begins despite having just discovered the existence of ghosts. Thinking on their feet, they realize they could probably build some containment equipment and start a business as ghost exterminators. The movie is about these three scientists trying to make it as business owners of a small company called Ghostbusters. The characters we will be looking at today are Dr. Egon Spangler, the man who invents the equipment, Dr. Raymond Stans, the straight man, and Dr. Peter Venkman, the sleazy fraud who is just trying to do the least amount of work possible. As their business takes off, they do hire another buster by the name of Winston Zedmore, who then becomes their fourth member. In order to talk about these characters, we'll be looking at the following media: Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2, and the unofficial, sorta official sequel known as Ghostbusters the video game, realistic version. Ghostbusters 2 takes place 5 years after the events of the first movie, where they are sued by everyone in New York and their business fails. However, a friend of the company named Dana Barrett is haunted by the ghost of a man named Vigo, who wants to possess her son in order to do what else? Take over the world. Of course! The movie ends relatively happily ever after, except plot twist, the story continues in a new video game produced in 2009 called Ghostbusters the video game. In this game, you play as a new recruit and hire onto the Ghostbusters team as you work together with them to shut down a demonic ritual that started almost 100 years ago, whose lore ties in actually shockingly well into the first movie. I'm not going to talk about the video game much because basically the world is in danger again and the Ghostbusters have to stop it. In the description, I have included a Let's Play that I stole this footage from, and the YouTube channel has a well-done 3-hour movie about the experience. If you want to watch it yourself, feel free to go ahead. It's an alright narrative. However, I am about to spoil the entire thing, so skip to this time code if you don't want it ruined. The Ghostbusters are now licensed by the city and state of New York and are contracted by the government and are now something of a public service, like firemen. Throughout the game, you are haunted by a lot of familiar faces from the past, and that's because the architect of the tower where Gozer was summoned in the first movie, Ivo Shandor, has returned from the grave and is now trying to become a god himself, and it's your job as the Ghostbusters to stop it. Most fans consider this video game to be the true sequel to Ghostbusters 2, and since it was written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis themselves, they claim that this pretty much used most of the ideas and concepts from the original ideas that they had from Ghostbusters 3. And yes, before you ask, I will be doing the player avatar. However, before we get to that, let's talk about the 2016 remake that stars an almost all-female cast in an alternate universe Earth that pretty much hits most of the same story beats as the original, with some various twists. This movie features Dr. Aaron Gilbert, a former instructor from Columbia University who specializes in theoretical particle physics, Dr. Abby Yates, the every gal who co-wrote a book with Aaron about the study of the paranormal, Dr. Jillian Holtzman, the mad scientist type character who develops all of their equipment, and Patty Tolan, I think I'm saying that name right, a former subway worker who specializes in the history of New York and is the best character in the series. Yes, really. In this movie, Dr. Gilbert is about to receive tenure from Columbia and is then dragged into a ghost hunting session with Abby and Holtzman. Like the other guys, they discover the existence of ghosts and then are ejected from their respective universities. They then decide to found the Ghostbusters, but their motivation seems to come more from the desire to study the ghosts and to help people and are less interested in the business side of things. Their movie repeats many of the same story beats from the original, and they do who end up saving the world just like the original team. So let's go ahead and get this big slimy elephant out of the room. The 2016 Ghostbusters is not a good movie. It's objectively messy and very sloppy. Of course, I do not personally judge anyone for liking it. In fact, there are several moments from this movie that I enjoy immensely. And funny enough, even though this may piss off quite a few people, I actually have more Nat 20 moments in the remake than I have in the original. So take that as you will, but I will present my biases up front, so there you go. Anyway, continuing with the trend that we've been setting for the rest of Halloween month, we'll be examining a bunch of characters at once, rather than focusing on just one. In this video, we will be examining characters who are considered Ghostbusters, and no side characters will be looked at all. That means no Janine, no Peck, no Lois, no Mayor, no Kevin, and no villains. Really, the only characters that matter in these movies are the Ghostbusters, and even then, only a few of the Ghostbusters are worth looking at in a case-by-case basis. In the remake, we'll be following Aaron and Abby, the two main characters whose decisions drive the plot forward, and who sort of divide the burden of leadership between the two of them. At the start of the movie, Aaron seems to be lawful neutral. I say that very hesitantly because her personality seems to be going for that more quirky, nervous brainiac, but she is a stickler for keeping her reputation and image as clean as possible. Meanwhile, I'd classify Abby at the start of the movie as true neutral, since she is only concerned with her research of the paranormal and has very little interest in anything else. In the original, we honestly have even less to go with, since Peter Venkman is really the only character that seems to matter. Honestly, Peter is kind of a creep, and despite the fact that he's a university professor, he spends most of his time being lazy and trying to sleep with a student. Even in the 80s, this was pretty disgusting. I'm going to follow up on this, but definitely go ahead and give this guy a very solid chaotic neutral with a very, very slight leaning towards evil, just because he's got a pretty mean-spirited, pun very intended, edge to him. And with that, let's go ahead and check out 9 Ghostbusters that end up in their respective series. With that, let's go.
If there's something strange in the neighborhood, who you gonna call?
Ghostbusters! Awards are massively important.
Yes, no, I was saying it'd be dumb not to go after awards.
Erin tries to impress her hero and just kind of makes up a bunch of stuff to do, so she fails. Chaotic neutral.
You are looking for a different Erin Gilbert.
Erin repeatedly denies writing a book about the paranormal, thinking she'll lose respect at the university she's at if she wrote it, and is ashamed of it. Chaotic neutral.
You had a recommendation letter from Dr. Brennan at Princeton.
Hi, Tywin. Aw, man. Hey guys, what was more disappointing to you? This movie or the ending of Game of Thrones?
Need my permission. I wrote that book with you. My name is on it.
No, absolutely not. That book is a whole new revenue stream for me.
Abby is actually being a dick right here. She legally can't publish the book without Erin's permission, and despite being asked politely to take it down, she just blocks her. I totally sympathize with the reason, but this is a colossal dick move. Neutral evil. I think we might need to make a new rule. Fart jokes are always chaotic neutral.
Please, Abby, just take the book down. Please.
All right, but you have to introduce us to this guy at the Aldridge Mansion.
Abby and Aaron make a deal to remove the book if they head to the museum. Lawful neutral. Okay, that is genuinely a haunting image. Nice job on this scene. Nat 20.
Hello. I think you're gorgeous.
Abby and Aaron try to make, what's the supernatural equivalent of first contact? I don't know. They try to talk to the spirit before being Ralphed on. They try to put the spirit at ease and be peaceful, so I'm just gonna say lawful good?
Don't tell anyone. I don't want people to panic or anything.
Aaron gets fired and tries to save face and leave the building with all her stuff. She then freaks out at Abby and Holdsmith for posting the video. Honestly, this is a big plot hole in the movie because they caught a ghost on tape, so I don't know how that got skipped, but chaotic neutral, whatever.
Okay, we should probably get this equipment out of here. They're gonna want it back.
I thought this stuff was yours. All stolen.
Okay, so this arguably could be chaotic evil. However, the equipment they have is useless to the school or anyone not hunting ghosts. But hey, who hasn't stolen some stuff from the school they once worked at?
For legal reasons, that's a joke. For legal reasons, that's a joke.
Oh, chaotic neutral.
I feel like a lawsuit waiting to happen.
One thing I definitely do want to give this movie credit for is the fact that they don't really have the female harassment double standard sometimes. Erin is creeping on Kevin really hard and it's not okay, and everyone calls her out on it. Good on you, movie. Sure wish the other movie did this more, but we'll get to that. Also, Aaron is perving on Kevin despite the fact that it's unprofessional and he's seemingly too dumb to recognize it or isn't interested. Chaotic neutral.
No. Let him. I'll take a visual.
Let him. This is my job.
This is another one of those comedy scenes that's hard to judge because funny movie logic is kind of getting in the way of real world logic here. Aaron and Abby encourage this random dude to continue vandalizing the wall to describe the ghosts, despite the fact that Patty said it would cost her job, and this is a regular problem. I'm going to say this is chaotic neutral, but if you wanted to argue chaotic or neutral evil since Patty is clearly being very inconvenienced here, I don't think I'd argue with you. Prioritizing your friend over your equipment is pretty neutral good.
And y'all won't have to lug all this heavy equipment around.
Guys, we gotta get a car.
The girls hire Patty solely for the fact that she has a car and she's knowledgeable about some parts of town. They let her in the group for the exact same reason that one of my exes dated me in high school. Lawful neutral.
Please do not answer.
I love Patty. She is by far the best character in this movie. Also, yeah, let's get her alignment out of the way. She is actually polite and nice to everyone she sees, and she seems to be the most duty-bound and does everything she can to be good to other people. Best gal Patty with lawful good.
Let's do this!
I know that Red Letter Media already complained about the color saturation in this movie, but I personally didn't really have a massive problem with it until this scene. Dear God, this is hard to look at, especially since I'm partially colorblind, and this looks like a hard-to-see mess. They also discharge their weapons in a public area despite knowing how dangerous it is. They're doing this to capture a ghost and keep everyone safe, but this really is reckless. Chaotic good.
Girl.
Okay, so despite multiple warnings, Aaron released the crazy dangerous ghost from captivity and killed Bill Murray, resulting in, you know, I think Bill Murray just likes to die in his cameos. Either way, this is pretty much manslaughter, but totally chaotic evil.
He's gonna be able to rip a hole right through that barrier.
Completely unprompted, the Ghostbusters head to the Mikado in order to stop the guy from tearing down the ghost barrier. Neutral good.
Then you must have been afforded the basic dignity and respect of a human being, which I have been denied.
Not really. People dump on us pretty much all the time.
Honestly, best line of the movie. I mean, that's actually some Nat 20 dialogue and a really good point. Also, Abby gets lawful good for trying to talk down a villain. Nice job.
Just are gonna fake arrest you now. Oh, and we towed your car. Real tow, not fake tow.
Okay, so they've accepted the fact that they've been made into the Fall Guys and are no longer among us as regular law-abiding citizens.
Ha ha!
However, they do this in order to cooperate with the government and keep the peace for the people at large. Even though this is technically a lie, it is lawful good, since they are working with their local government for the benefit of everyone else. It's kind of neat how that sometimes works. Lawful good.
Put you back in therapy, you freak.
Aaron straight up assaults a dude. Granted, he needed to fuck off and he was baiting her pretty hard, but yep, chaotic evil.
Oh, man.
Kevin, come on, Rowan, get out of him!
Shortly after being possessed by Rowan, Abby tries to save Kevin via diplomacy again. I'll just say lawful good.
You have to evacuate the city.
Aaron goes on a complete rampage on the mayor and tells him to evacuate the city. Chaotic good.
Let's do this.
Abby, leading the others, charges headlong into danger to save New York. Neutral good.
Let's go.
Okay, admittedly, on its own, Holtzsmith gets a pretty badass moment. Granted, the music is kinda doing the heavy lifting here, but I do genuinely like the scene. Also, Holtzsmith is kinda meant to serve as the mad scientist character. She's doing good here, but honestly, if left alone, she has almost no interest in being helpful in general, unless she is developing tech or, you know, being that sort of mad genius type trope. I'm gonna say she's mostly chaotic neutral, but if you want to say at the end of the movie she becomes chaotic good due to those actions and her little moment at the end where she tells her friends how much they mean to her, yeah, alright.
Don't let Rowan get away!
If you don't mind, I'm just gonna blast past the rest of Abby and Aaron. They save Kevin, save each other, and save New York, each in several self-sacrificing ways. Lawful good 3 times. Ooh, and they get white hair, nice.
Well, that's not terrible.
No, it's not. It's not terrible at all.
Don't So Venkman is kind of a piece of shit. He cheats the psychic test in order to sleep with women. He then cheats the guy out of his winnings and deals painful electric shocks in order to do that. So yeah, technically he's chaotic evil in this moment.
You're not going to lose the house. Everybody has 3 mortgages nowadays.
But at 19%, you didn't even bargain with the guy.
Peter totally screws over Ray here. He makes him get a ridiculous 3rd mortgage in order to get the loan to start their moonshot business. He makes his best friend the fall guy and risks nothing. Maybe there's some salt in my own personal life experiences talking here, but this is kinda infuriating. It works out for them eventually, but even then, this is lawful evil.
I don't think you're crazy.
Oh, good. That makes me feel so much better.
Okay, so Ray isn't really taking his job seriously. He comes in, checks out Dana's apartment, and then they just kinda half-asses and wings it despite not really being any evidence that she's crazy or anything. He then asks her out, which she rejects him, and then he kinda makes it his job to fix her problem in order to prove himself to her. It's definitely not evil, but it is self-serving. He doesn't care about her specifically yet, so this attitude and actions towards her are just kinda chaotic neutral.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass!
So the Ghostbusters bust their first successful ghost. They apparently never really discussed how to price themselves, so they just kinda take the hotel for a ride while wrecking the place. They charge $5,000, which is about $12,000 if we adjusted it for inflation today, and this isn't evil, but it's definitely doesn't really qualify as lawful or chaotic either, so I'm just gonna say it's a very expensive true neutral.
More sightings are reported. Some maintain that these professional...
The Ghostbusters spend an unspecified amount of time capturing ghosts, expanding their business, and being extremely successful exterminators. I'm just gonna say 2 lawful neutral dings for the montage.
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
Winston is a weird character. He honestly doesn't really do much to the service of the plot other than kind of fulfill the everyman role, but his line there pretty much says it all. He doesn't really do anything wild or chaotic throughout the movies, and we don't see him contradict the statement at all during the course of the movies or the game. He does eventually get his doctorate in the video game, but like, so what? Lawful neutral?
Because I respect you.
Peter meets up with Dana and gives her information on Gozer and Zool. He then compliments her and asks her out, to which she reciprocates. He appears to be sincere about it too, and seems to be making the attempt to ask her out while being professional. Lawful good.
You go get a court order, and I'll sue your ass for wrongful prosecution.
A man named Walter Peck from the Environmental Protection Agency shows up at the Ghostbuster facilities to examine their ghost storage in the basement because they suspect that they have unsafe facilities in the basement. He's right. Peter tells him to go get a court order and a warrant and refuses to let him examine their basement. Technically, Venkman is within his rights to do so, and this is totally lawful neutral.
I make it a rule never to get involved with possessed people.
Let's address an accusation that gets thrown around a lot among Ghostbusters fans. A lot of people really dislike Venkman and claim that he's an awful misogynistic womanizer and a terrible person overall. And yeah, he kinda is at the beginning, but that is what his character art is sorta meant to be. He was a real creep, especially since he was a professor at the university and was clearly hitting on a student. Even for the time, that's pretty bad. But after joining the Ghostbusters and making himself into a success, he clearly comes to care about Dana and refuses to sleep with her while she's clearly possessed. He then carefully turns her down and tries to sedate her in order to prevent her from hurting herself or others while trying to solve her problem. It's a pretty lawful good character arc if you ask me.
He wants to shut down the protection grid, Peter.
You shut that thing down, and we are not going to be held responsible for what...
The feds come in and attempt to shut down the grid that the Ghostbusters use to house ghosts. Despite warning the EPA and Peck that this is extremely dangerous to do, a lot of them simply warn the officers but let them do their duties. They don't really explain all the dangers because, well, frankly, they don't understand it all that well themselves. While Peck is being kinda dumb, he's still technically in the right. What they're doing is dangerous and unregulated. The Ghostbusters just kind of accepting this is pretty much the textbook definition of lawful neutral. Kinda.
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
This doesn't stop them from getting into fistfights with them, though, whenever they insult each other. I know I gave Erin a chaotic evil, and that's because she made it a lot more personal and it was straight up assault, as opposed to an intense situation getting worse.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
What if you're wrong?
If I'm wrong, nothing happens. We go to jail. Peacefully, quietly. We'll enjoy it.
Peter and the Ghostbusters stress the importance of letting them stop the ghosts that are invading the city. They even agree to be imprisoned if it doesn't work out. Self-sacrificing and working with the greater good is lawful good. I love that hard cut. Nat 20.
Are you a god?
No.
Ooh, actually, this is a good time to do Ray. Ray is honest and true to a fault. He's actually pretty naive and a little too trusting. In the beginning, he constantly gets taken advantage of by Venkman, and he shows his cards too early when they were negotiating for their firehouse. However, he's not really a goody two-shoes either. He doesn't really jump to volunteer to help anyone else out. He's just kind of obsessed with his own work and gets excited whenever the new opportunity with the supernatural arises. So I'm going to say Ray throughout pretty much the entire series is lawful neutral. The argument could be made that he's true neutral, but I disagree only in that we never actually see him do anything chaotic or wild. He's just constantly excited, which is not always the same thing.
We'll cross the streams.
Excuse me, Egon. You said crossing the streams was bad.
Egon proposed a plan that would likely destroy them, but has a pretty good chance of sending Gozer back to the other dimension. This results in them saving everyone and the city. Say it with me, folks. Lawful good.
What are you working on, Egon?
Trying to determine whether human emotions actually affect the physical environment. It's a theory Ray and I had when we were still Ghostbusters.
Okay, starting off with Ghostbusters 2. So Egon is kind of weird, right? He's actually fairly subdued and subtle. His passion, like Ray, is about science and research to the point where he actively rejected a relationship with Janine and continued his work into the second movie even after losing his job as a Ghostbuster. He's pretty much the straight man to Ray's wild enthusiasm. I, at first, thought he was lawful neutral, but in reality, I think he's closer to true neutral since he really doesn't have any sort of ethics or ideals he cares about other than the pursuit of science. True neutral.
That is the whole problem with aliens.
After the events of Ghostbusters, Peter runs some show on TV called The World of Psychics, where he pretty much becomes one of those late-night AM radio hosts sort of type deals. He just has on wackos and weirdos and talks about the paranormal. Honestly, there really isn't anything big about this. Peter admits to being a fraud, but that really doesn't matter. He's not ripping anyone off, just hosting a weird show, so I'm gonna say neutral.
I can't! No!
After Dana asked Egon for help on her runaway carriage, Egon and Ray both agree to inspect her baby and her environment. Peter finds out that they're meeting someone and tortures Ray in order to get him to tell where they're going. He then invites himself along and is just kind of a prick to her. Apparently, within the 5 years between movies, he was a pretty unenthusiastic boyfriend to her, but cites that she was just as unenthusiastic. Either way, they're not a good fit. Peter is being neutral evil, though, especially for playing a cello like a guitar. Put that down, Peter! Oh my god!
What's it look like we're doing here? Why don't you let us work? We let you work.
The Ghostbusters break city laws and dig into the streets in order to help Dana. They lie to the police officer here on why they're doing it. Chaotic good.
Yourselves to dig a very big hole in the middle of First Avenue.
Well, there's so many holes in First Avenue, we really didn't think anyone would notice.
The Ghostbusters are then arrested for doing this and they are taken to court over it. Peter has clearly given up on their chances for getting out of trouble and just starts cracking jokes. Chaotic neutral.
And you don't want us exposing ourselves.
So technically this could be seen as lawful evil. The Ghostbusters refuse to help take out the ghosts that showed up in the courthouse while they're being punished under the law. The judge released them from their punishment so that they can go do what they do best. I'm just gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and say lawful neutral though, since they don't really have any other way out of this.
Something strange going on. Something.
2 lawful neutral dings for the montage again, since it's happening over a longer period of time.
I get the feeling that painting is watching me.
Dana expressed concern to Peter, who then gathers the Ghostbusters as they head to the museum the next day and investigate clearly without permission. Also, she got attacked in the middle of the night with slime, and he lets her and her baby stay at their place. He then asks her out again, so chaotic good? Peter actually did nothing wrong, but went along with the arrest to go see the mayor. Lawful good.
Don't look at me. I think these people are completely nuts.
After failing to convince the mayor, they are then committed to a psychiatric hospital, and Venkman just kind of gives up. Neutral. Okay, I love this. Thanks to the vibe check slime, they cause the Statue of Liberty to move and unite the city with the Ghostbusters in the name of love and peace. This is so goofy, cheesy, and over the top it hurts, and I love it. Lawful good and nat 20 scene.
Tasty pick. Bonehead!
Yeah, let's speed this one up too. Peter and the Ghostbusters fight and defeat Vigo, saving Dana, her baby, Ray, and the city, naturally while using the power of friendship. Lawful good.
Hey, if you're gonna burn any tissue, do it to the new kid.
In the Ghostbusters video game, our player avatar is hired as a 5th Ghostbuster and as a tester and guinea pig of new equipment. When Peter says that line, it's a pretty crappy thing to say about someone, but he's also probably joking here, or at least trying to make light of a situation. I'm just gonna say neutral, since it's very clear that that's why we're hired.
Well, hello.
So, what happened with Dana? Do we ever find out? I looked on the wiki and there's nothing. So either they broke up or he sleeps around. Honestly, I could believe either, but since I don't know and him just focusing on girls while working on a job, I'm just gonna mark it as chaotic neutral.
Yes! That wasn't such a chore, now was it?
Okay, so this is like a 3-hour game, and most of the time, Peter Venkman is just kind of meant to be a general supporter. He really doesn't service the plot as much as you as the player, and it would honestly be a giant waste of time to focus on him since his main job is to just stand there, tell jokes, and serve as backup. I'm just gonna give his general purpose in this movie as true neutral. He does his job, but he does it because he wants his paycheck and he wants to hit on girls. Plus, this is a video game, so there's a lot of filler that's just has Venkman being Venkman, so let's just give him 2 dings on true neutral, I guess.
We eat gods for breakfast.
Credit where it's due, he does volunteer to save the world on his own accord, and offers to self-sacrifice again when the going gets tough, so at least he has that going for him. Lawful good. Now, your character is meant to be a sort of regular player avatar. He doesn't really have a seeming goal or personality to speak of. In fact, most of his communication is done through some relatively okay facial expressions. He's just kind of going with the flow, and he does whatever the old cast demands of him. He does operate on his own and frequently figures out puzzles without the prompting of others, but without knowing your character's backstory or motivation, all we can determine is that your guy seems loyal to the Ghostbusters almost to a fault, and pretty much only them. So with that, I'll just call him lawful neutral.
We eat gods for breakfast?
Too much, you think?
No, I liked it.
So, as you can clearly see, most of our characters were fairly consistent. Even the 2016 Ghostbusters had relatively believable arcs. In fact, I'd argue that Peter Venkman actually had the most frustrating character arc out of all of our Ghostbusters. And I realize those might be fighting words to some, but I personally think this series is pretty overrated. It's not an original thought to call the first Ghostbusters lightning in a bottle, and it's completely true. It is the most complete and funniest out of all the movies. However, Ghostbusters 2 tried to capitalize on its success and repeat all the beats that made the first movie good, and it just resets the characters basically with no real change. Different verse, same as the first. Ghostbusters the video game did the exact same thing again. Sure, the lore and history was kept and it expanded on, but like, Venkman is back to doing exactly what he did in the first movie. He's a standoffish turd and is in it for the money and chicks, but then eventually realizes that he needs to save the world. What happened to Dana? Who cares? Venkman gets a girl again in the game. Thank God the story was actually pretty interesting and played with a lot of the lore from the first movie. Otherwise, this would have been a complete waste of time because I promise you ain't playing it for the riveting gameplay. Ghostbusters 2016 doesn't get any breaks either. It's honestly pretty awful. Let's do the original, but with like no plan. And they also only ever bust like one ghost, and suddenly they're badass action heroes. I hate to say it, but I don't think this mythology or universe really has a lot going for it. For me, it's as antiquated as Star Wars. The original movies were amazing flukes that barely stuck the landing, and the follow-ups never really captured the same magic. And once again, I got nothing really to add to this other than what's already been said by so many others. But I hate to follow up these movies with a bunch of negativity, so I'll say something nice again about all the characters. Erin was a decent protagonist despite the plot holes I mentioned earlier. She was fun to watch at times and had the most compelling story out of pretty much all the other characters. Abby did a good job as leader and frequently kept the plot in order, despite the fact that she was clearly meant to be like the silly one. She actually held the group together for the most part. I would be interested to see what else could have been done, but guess not. Holt Smith is the only character I thought had anything close to a badass moment, and it was pretty cool. Patty is actually my favorite character. I've got no complaints about Patty. Venkman seems to be that guy who's a really shitty friend when things are going good, but he shines best when things are going to shit. So it's difficult to judge him based on that regard, but it's, you know, one of those good in war but lousy in peace kind of people. As far as Dr. Egon is concerned, I fully believe that a character like him could create the tech that they showed off in the series, and I believed he was a really good reserve genius type. I really liked him. Winston was just cool. He's honestly one of the most underutilized characters in the series, but somehow he always made it seem like he belonged. I never once felt like his character was forced despite his diminished screen time. Ray was honestly a joy. I don't know why, but I really liked his over-the-top enthusiasm about ghosts, and he kept a childlike joy throughout the movies. He was arguably the most consistent character. And the Rookie did well as serving as a self-insert fantasy, and it was smart of them to let the player have an OC rather than playing as the original cast. I really can't say too much about the Rookie since he just kind of was there. Despite the issues, this video was fun to make, and I appreciate everyone who has stuck around so far. If anything, I hope you at least had fun discovering the sequel that you probably never heard of. Check out other alignment videos. Thank you to the patrons, and I'll see you next time.
We eat gods for breakfast.